Hello and welcome to the 5th series of Forthright,
the podcast with, for and by women writers.
If you enjoy the show, please give us a follow and a review wherever you listen to your podcasts.
We've got some fantastic writers for you coming up. We hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Forthright podcast. I'm Anna.
And I'm Sam, and today we're delighted to introduce Marisa Linton. Hi, Marisa.
Hi.
So, Marisa Linton is an author, historian and professor emerita. She is one of the world's leading experts on the French Revolution and taught history for many years at Kingston University, specialising in witchcraft and magical beliefs. She also works as a historical advisor, including for the TV series Dangerous Liaisons, where she was part of the writers' room. She now writes fantasy for young adults that draws on her love for the ancient Celtic Britain folklore and fascination with magic, ghost stories and the supernatural. Born in Barnes in southwest London into an Italian-English family, she has lived for many years in Brighton, where she has raised her 3 children. Her novel, The Binding Spell, was published by Chicken House in May 2025.
And today, Marisa is going to be reading from The Binding Spell, so I'm just going to read the blurb before handing over to her. Morgan believes his nightmares are over when she moves to the country. She confides in local boy Joe Harper, whose secret seems as tangled as hers. And their time together is magic. But Morgan's bad dreams return when her archaeologist father starts working on an ancient grave. With every relic on earth, a creeping horror emerges, a deadly spell that binds them all. Oh, fantastic. Okay, Marisa, would you mind explaining whereabouts in the book you're going to be reading from for context for our listeners before you start?
The book, the passage that I'm going to read it's from an early part of the book. Morgan and Johnny, as her twin brother, is a bit of a reprobate, and their younger siblings. They've just arrived at a train station. They're on their way to join their dad, who's an archaeologist, and he's made them go with him to this remote village on the Welsh border where he's excavating an ancient site. And yeah, lots of creepy things are in store for them, especially for Morgan, who's my chief protagonist.
Fantastic.
This is an extract from chapter 2. It's called The Terrible Thing. And Morgan has just had what she thinks of as an episode. It's actually a vision. She's in a cafe at a train station. "You all right?" Morgan forced her eyes open. She was back in the cafe. Dark light had retreated, but she could still sense it hovering in a remote corner of her mind. The man in the herringbone jacket had taken his coffee and gone, leaving Morgan exposed to the scrutiny of the girl behind the counter. The girl's nose wrinkled. Ugh. Morgan realised how weird she must look. Eyes staring, skin ashen. She put a trembling hand to her face and drew it away, bathed in cold sweat. She tried to say something normal, but words wouldn't come. "Don't let her see you freaking out." Morgan gripped the edge of the counter and ordered food and drinks, though her voice didn't sound like hers. The girl bent forward, puzzled. "What'd you say?" Morgan repeated the order. The girl rolled her eyes as she got the stuff together. "Hey," Johnny appeared at Morgan's side. "It's been bloody ages. We're all starving." Morgan didn't answer. Her throat was tight and her ears pounded. Johnny knew all about what had happened in the past, of course, her delusions. She still had the dreams occasionally, bad ones, but not the hallucinations that came when she was awake, that scared her senseless. Nothing like that for years. Johnny grinned at the girl, dazzling her with his green-eyed gaze as he flashed an ID. "And tobacco," he pointed out the cheapest brand. The girl grinned back like her day had just taken an unexpected turn for the better. Johnny glanced sideways at his twin. "Yeah, I'm smoking again. Can't be bothered with vaping. Bad for your health." Morgan shrugged her indifference. "Where's Wolf and Callie?" "Oh, about that. Some people came to take them away, so they were from social services, and they'd never seen 2 kids so neglected. Oh, very funny." "Chill, Morgan. They're waiting outside the station, and Wolf's 13, for fuck's sake. They're not going to get kidnapped." She tried to smile back, but the muscles around her mouth wouldn't move. Johnny narrowed his eyes. "What happened? You look like shit." She couldn't let Johnny know she'd had what the doctors called an episode. She didn't want to see the old fear in his eyes when he looked at her. Distract him. Stop him asking questions. What happened? She worked herself up. You mean apart from the fact that we're moving to someplace new again, all because Dad's got yet another job, we've got to start a new school again, make new friends again, and someone's got to look after Wolf and Callie, and it isn't bloody going to be you, is it, Johnny? She stopped, chest heaving. You done? Said Johnny. The girl behind the counter pushed the food and drinks towards Morgan and slid Johnny's tobacco to him. He winked at her and she giggled. You going to pay? He said to Morgan. I'll owe you for the baccy. He swept up the food, the tobacco and the lemonade to Wolf and Callie, gave the girl his funniest smile and left. Morgan sneaked a furtive look around. Could the shadow man still be there, just out of her line of sight, watching her? No sign of him, like he'd melted away into the walls. She thought she was over the episode, but as she emerged onto the train platform, the dark light came flooding back into life, blurring her sight. She staggered, half blinded, almost cannoning into the man in the herringbone jacket, waiting for the down train. He jumped back in alarm as Morgan stumbled past him. She got as far as a bench, put her tea on the ground and dropped down, knees shaking. Two elderly women shuffling past with their shopping cast sidelong looks at her. Morgan caught the words, young people, drink or drugs, and disgraceful. She glared at their backs. With a roar, the down train pulled into the station. People got in, no one got out. Moments later, Morgan was alone. She stayed on the bench, her mind going back to when she had first met the shadow man. It had happened 5 years ago, not long after their mother died. With her went all the safety, security and love they'd taken for granted. Everything had been strange, desolate and frightening, and Dad's breakdown was perhaps the most terrifying thing of all. Then came the day when the shadow man broke into Morgan's head. She'd been lurking in the school cloakroom, waiting for the final bell, hiding from some kids who had laughed at her because she'd come into school wearing the same unwashed clothes every day that week. A cold sickness had filled her stomach, a coppery taste, a smell she couldn't describe but instinctively recognized, the dark light. She sensed his presence in the shadows behind a rack of coats and sports equipment. I'm coming for you, Morgan, for all of you. There's no escape. Then another voice, this one inside her own head, warning her, take the little ones, now, run and hide. Gripped by terror, sure that some unspeakable evil was hunting them, she'd done the terrible thing. Dad had been at work, Johnny a football fixture, so she'd acted alone, picked up Wolf from school and Callie from nursery, like she'd so often done. Only instead of taking them home, she'd fled with them, along main roads, suburban streets, across wasteland, through a muddy ditch, under wire fencing. They hid in a shed among allotments, miles from the block of flats where they'd been living. Then came the long night and the endless next day, crouched in the pitch-dark shed, with Callie and Wolf whimpering with fear, hunger and misery, trusting their big sister to take care of them, her arms tight round them, hiding from the shadow man that Morgan's 12-year-old self had been convinced was out there hunting for them. It had been a team of police with their tracker dogs who'd found them that afternoon, huddled, hiding from a monster who existed in Morgan's imagination.
So you started off writing it as a way to connect to your daughters when they were younger. Is that right?
Yes, I wanted to. I'd written several history books, very dense things with a lot of footnotes. I wanted to write something that my daughters might find fun. So I returned to the kind of fantasy books that I'd loved when I was a kid, some time ago. But I tried to write them, obviously, for modern readers, for modern ears.
And so was there an element of you, of like, I guess, oral storytelling with them to like develop the ideas, or was it something that you would share with them in snatches?
They were really small when I started.
Okay.
I mean, if I tell you they're in their 20s now, it was some time ago. But they were small. So I told them bits of story, particularly about the youngest kid in this family. It's Callie, who's 8 in the story. So she was about the age my older daughter was when I began it. So I told them bits of that side of the story and then started to write things down, and then it got longer. and bigger and more of a thing. And I became very involved in it. It was a kind of escape, really, from sort of other things in my life that weren't so easy. Right, stories can be a refuge. That's what Robert Louis Stevenson said. Stories are my refuge, and I think this was partly for me. Yeah, but I drew on things that I'd loved when I was younger. So, like the first books I'd read had been C.S. Lewis, the Narnia stories, Tolkien. I read at a ridiculously young age. There wasn't a lot to do. So you'd read the books because there was no other way to entertain yourself. There wasn't a lot on telly, which is a good thing, I think, for our imaginations. Another writer that really inspired me was Alan Garner, and I think this story is a bit in that kind of mould. I would love to think so. But as I said, he was writing his stories. The stories that he wrote for children, like the Owl Service. He wrote those back in the 60s, I think. It's a different world now, and you can't write for young people now in the same way that you would have done then. They don't have the patience. So once I started to rewrite this story for publication, I made it a lot faster moving and more intense, and tried to make it something that would absorb people who have other things that might take their attention. We live in a very different kind of world. So it's a very fast-paced story.
So with that as well, I know it's a young adult story, but also we loved it as well. I mean, it feels like it's something that kind of transcends generation in terms of who your readership's for. And I think partly, there's the interest around magic, and I'm really interested in this in terms of your route into this, because when you specialised in witchcraft and magical beliefs as part of your teaching at Kingston University, that must have had an influence on deciding to write in this genre, as well as something that you were interested in when you were growing up as a child as well. So, at what point did you think, yes, this is for me, I'm going to write a novel, and it's going to be, and magic is going to be at the heart of this?
Well, magic is escapism, of course. So what I was doing, in a sense, I was transfiguring the kind of things that I loved as a kid to read as stories, but also the history that I'd studied, and trying to make them into something that was absorbing in itself. But when you teach this subject, it's a really different thing. I mean, the study of belief in magic, there's a lot of anthropology in there. It's about systems of belief, cultures, societies, but a lot of it's about the powerless trying to find meaning in the world and agency through their ability to create spells. So magic is a form of empowerment. But another aspect of that was terrible, really, and that's in the early modern period when the authorities became convinced that people who had supposedly magical powers were in league with the devil, and that's when the witch hunts begin, and that is something I taught a lot. I mean, it's really interesting as a subject, but it's really grim, because it's an account of persecution and torture sometimes, and death. It's a really sort of heavy subject, but I always find it interesting. Funnily enough, the one time when the sort of social elites found out about ordinary people, particularly women, and what they felt and believed, was when they came to the conclusion that such people were engaged in magic, and that magic was real, and they were frightened of it. So the judges, the ecclesiastics, were afraid of the power of these people. So that's it's a very powerful thing. It's very intense, and it's very revealing in terms of the source material. But some of those sources were obtained under interrogation and torture. Certainly on the continent, they used torture. They did in Scotland as well, not routinely in England, but they put a lot of pressure on people, and horrible things were done.
Yeah,
it's fascinating. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say it's because often we kind of will ask our guests about their sort of research methods and how much research they have to do. But it's like you've had a whole career's worth of research, and then and now the book. But so are you working on something at the moment?
Well, yes, I am indeed. What happened with this story, with the binding spell, was I couldn't get any agents interested. There's a long tail here of how difficult it is in the world of commercial fiction. So I wrote a whole other book.
Uh-huh.
That one was aimed at adults, and it's about a young woman who becomes an occult detective in Edwardian Britain. So it's more historically minded.
Yeah,
but
it's
aimed at adults. Yeah, well, it's a bit kind of Sherlock Holmes, M.R. James's ghost stories, Dracula. I love that kind of thing. And so I wrote that as an adult book. Then I tried to query that with agents, and it got absolutely nowhere too. By that, I'm cutting a long story short. That was quite depressing by that point. But I persisted. The thing is, as a writer, you're going to get a lot of setbacks and rejections. I'm afraid, that's what happens. So I kept going, and I entered the binding spell. It was then called the Puka King, in a competition. This was the Times Chicken House competition, writing competition, and it won. It won. It was wonderful. I never expected that to happen because, Chicken House publish children's and young adults, and I just never thought they would be interested. But it won. And part of the prize was that they would publish my book. But on the back of that success, publishers became interested in my occult detective story. So within a month, I found a publisher for that, an agent, and then a publisher for that. So the occult detective story is also going to be published. It's with Hodderscape. That's part of, it's an imprint of Hodder and Stoughton, and it's coming out on October the 9th.
Oh, fabulous.
Huge congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely brilliant. And also, it's really interesting hearing about your route into publishing as well, because I think would be fascinating as well for our kind of women older writers who are that your book, because your first book was published when you were 65. Is that right?
Yes, it was.
So had you always known that you wanted to write fiction, or was this something? I know that you're writing for your daughters, but but to come into a kind of a second career, as it were, now writing fiction, how does that feel, and how does that feel in comparison to working in academia, for example?
I always liked writing fiction right from when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
But I was very lacking in confidence, full of imposter syndrome, like many of your listeners, I'm guessing. Many of us have this, particularly women, but not just women. So I doubted myself, and I found this whole other career in writing history. But as I said, I'd written The Binding Spell sort of kind of semi-secretly. I'd shared it with my daughters, but not really anyone else, over many years. And what actually happened is I was forced into redundancy by my university. They closed their history department. They call it voluntary severance, but it's redundancy. And I could have seen that as a disaster. I mean, it's grim, but I thought, well, why not see that as a moment of empowerment and liberation, and try and do the thing you've always wanted, which is to publish fiction. Like, what's stopping you now? And there was nothing stopping me. So I did it. I went for it very determinedly this time. And as I said, I got a lot of rejection. It's not easy out there, but
definitely.
You just have to persist through the rejection. And if I hadn't entered the Chicken House competition, this wouldn't have happened. But I had to have the book for it to happen. So you kind of have to keep going and persevere and try not to be knocked back too much by the rejections, and just hope that one day the luck will turn your way. But you have to be in the right position for the luck to turn your way. You have to have your book ready. And I've known other people, I have other writing friends for whom, the luck has changed, but you have to be there. You have to keep going.
Well, I think the academia's loss at that point is certainly the game for literature, because it's wonderful that then this created space for you then to concentrate on fiction writing. And now we're talking about your new book as well. But now for you, what does your writing day look like? How do you commit to your writing, and what would you describe as a successful day or time writing for you?
I just sit down and do it. Sorry, that makes it sound miraculous, but there's no getting away from it. My best ideas tend to come in the morning. So if I've lost it in the morning, then the rest of the day usually doesn't go so well. Mm. And I do try and write not long after I've woken up, because I often find that things that have been puzzling me in the night I come up with a solution sometimes in the morning, and so that can help. And then you just sit there and you do it. I do try and take breaks. That's really important, because it's such a sedentary thing to do, and it's good for your imagination to go for walks and things, to do other things as well. So I do try and vary it up a bit. But I don't have a set number of words. It's just the time. It's just devoting a huge amount of your time to sitting there and your craft. Oh, one tip I do have if a plot's going badly is I take a bath.
Well, that's a good idea.
Agatha Christie used to do that. She used to take a bath, and I thought, well, if it worked for Agatha, I'm sure it's good enough for me. I think it's that relaxing thing of, that relaxing moment, and you're not kind of doing anything else, watching anything else. And it's trying to get into a state of mind where you're almost mesmerizing yourself for ideas, and sometimes they'll come to you. So, yeah.
I definitely think that water in some kind of form solves lots and lots of issues. I think it's like I could be like feeling really grumpy, and it's like, oh no, you just haven't had a drink of water like all day, and you're like, oh yeah, now that's better. I can think again.
Changing things up.
Yes.
Just sort of changing scene. Yeah, helps. Yeah, for sure. You asked what I was doing now. I'm writing the sequel to Circle of Shadows.
Fantastic.
It's a 2-book deal. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So
that's what I'm actually doing. Yeah.
So with that then, how do you, do you plan, or so you've the first book's written, but it's part of a 2-book deal. So do you know what the start, middle and the end is for the next book, or will you find out as writing it?
I like a detailed plan.
Do you? What does your detailed plan look like?
Well, very detailed. It's sort of a beat by beat plan for where I'm going to go. Because Circle of Shadows, now this sequel, they're very much mystery stories where you're in the mind of the detective, Evie, her name is, and the discoveries that she's making. So it has to follow a certain kind of route. So you can't be too free with that. You need to have some idea of where you're going, what she will find at what point, what's going to happen to her. But having said that, the best things come when you leave the plan, start writing, and you discover, oh, actually, this is going to happen, or this character is going to walk in, and those can be where the really exciting stuff happens, where you have your plan, but you go off piste. And the other thing that, of course, is the edits. You can change so much in the edits. That's another piece of advice I would give to anybody struggling to write a draft. Is Stephen King said this: just get the damn thing down on paper, and then you make it. Well, he's not the only one to say it, but that is the gist of it. Get the damn thing down, and then you can rewrite it in the edits, and you can discover whole kind of facets of your story that you hadn't known were there. It's like you're trying to get through to the real heart of your story, the real truth of it. And sometimes you have to sort of sneak up on your story for that to happen. And you need to be really immersed in it, like weirdly immersed. You can get so immersed that you're actually sort of reciting lines of dialogue. People probably think you're really weird. Oh dear. But you just go into it. You have to do that to sort of bring your characters alive, and they have to say things that real people would say. So you have to speak it aloud, and that kind of helps you get immersed.
It must be really nice from that point of view to kind of be writing Edie a second time round. Like, you've already got to know her through the first book. And so, it's, you know, you're not starting from scratch with getting to know your character. You can kind of have a real sense of the actions that she would take.
You know what? It's great fun. It's the best. It is. When it's going well, it's absolutely, the best. And you feel your character's your friend. You get to know her so well. But I do feel I'm getting to know her better writing this. There's more depth to it, definitely.
Do you think you'd go back to writing young adult, or do you feel that in itself, that was a project within itself, and now you've turned your hand more to adult fiction? Where do you feel about all of that?
I don't really, in my mind, make a distinction between young adult and adult. For me, it's just the story.
Yeah,
I wrote The Binding Spell with young people in it, but a lot of my friends have read it who are by no means young adults, wouldn't read young adult stuff, and wouldn't actually normally read fantasy, and they've been kind enough to say they really enjoyed it. Yeah, so I tried to write the story, and also the children have read The Binding Spell if their parents don't know there's swearing in it. But please don't tell anyone. But the children don't turn a hair, but obviously the parents are troubled. But I wanted to make it sound authentic, that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm more into just writing the story and then kind of worry about what happens afterwards. In terms of writing for young adults, I would like to write sequels to The Binding Spell. There was always more in my head about those characters. A lot more.
That's really exciting to hear. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I absolutely agree with what you're saying from your peers, that it didn't feel like it was a YA book. I don't think we thought that at all with reading it. And it's interesting how publishers, it's more where they can see it being placed and how they can market it in their readership, isn't it, in some extent more than where we kind of see things as writers.
Yeah, absolutely. Publishers, obviously, they have to sell books. I get that. They have to think about the market. I understand that. But for me, writing the book, I didn't write it thinking, well, what would young adults think? Or so much as how to tell the story from the perspective of a 17-year-old girl, and trying to do that as well as I could, if I could, but not thinking so much about the market, because if you think about the market when you're writing too much, I think that can be quite deadening. Your writing can come out quite sort of flat, I think. Sorry, I'm not wanting to cast dispersions on any writers in particular. There are some fantastic people who write for young adults now, absolutely fantastic. But I think you can't think too much about the market when you're writing. Afterwards, of course, you have to.
So it's more coming from a place of passion than a place of kind of, thinking about where it fits within other genres and so on.
Yes. Yeah, I wrote the stories that I felt a need to write. I couldn't do it any other way. I wouldn't have enough dedication to sit down and write a story, let's just write a thing for young adults, because it had to be the story first. Otherwise, I'd never have done it. It had to be something I cared enough about to write.
And you mentioned before about writer friends reading your work. Can I ask, are you part of a writing group, or do you share your writing with others, or do you keep it to yourself before you then share it with your agent or publisher? When I was first writing, as I said, I shared it with nobody, a bit with my kids, because I had huge imposter syndrome. So a big part of my evolution as a fiction writer was to start sharing. Really daunting at first, because
writing fiction, it's not like writing history. You're disclosing a really personal part of yourself. If people don't like your fiction, it feels like they don't like you. I'm not quite that, but because it's a craft as well. But it is a very, very personal thing. So yeah, but you have to get over that in order to get any further. And if you want to be read, you have to share and you have to take that step. And since I first started sharing, I've had some wonderful writing buddies that I found. Some of them in Brighton, where I live, some wonderful ones. I could name names, but also some of them online as well. And yeah, that hugely matters. If you can find really good writing buddies, they will be your friends too, and they will support you, and they'll give you critiques, but they'll give you critiques from a place of wanting the best for your story.
Absolutely.
Never stick with a writing group that bashes you down. This is not what any of nobody needs that.
Or the opposite of that, just tells you everything is wonderful, because that's not helpful either, is it?
Well, a bit of that is quite nice.
A piece of it, absolutely.
But yeah, if you trust somebody, what I mean is if you trust them to want the best for your book, and then gentle critique for sure, and people it can help you kind of really imagine the things, and that can be incredibly helpful, or tell you things that are wrong. I wouldn't worry too much about writing buddies for the sort of the edits and the detail, because actually it comes later. If you're going to be published, there are a whole lot of people who will put hands on your book and just make you rewrite little bits. But I think for the initial things, the plot, the structure,
story,
character, story, how you tell it, writing buddies are just fantastic. And also they keep you going, and hopefully you keep them going, because it can be a load as well.
Aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely so. Yeah. Do you know what? I'm actually writing at the moment my acknowledgements for Circle of Shadows. I was doing that today, and writing down a list of my writing buddies. It makes me feel very good that these people sort of were part of that. And they didn't know at the time the book would ever be published, and certainly I didn't. But they helped me, and I hope I helped them too. And that's great. That feels great.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I feel like you've given us lots of pearls of wisdom throughout this conversation. But as a final tip from you for what you'd suggest to people starting out in writing, or maybe something that you would tell yourself when you started.
For people writing a novel, you mean? Because obviously there's different kinds of...
Yes.
Well, first of all, as Stephen King says, just get the damn thing down on paper. You can waste so much time not doing that, and you really need to get the thing down. But also tell yourself this isn't the end of it. This is just the beginning. So when you look at things and you think, well, this isn't right, this isn't good, just plow on through that and write it. And then once it's done, and you start to edit and share it with people, you start to reshape it and to fashion it into something that becomes a kind of a real refuge for you, and a source of pleasure, and hopefully eventually a source of pleasure for other people too. But you've got to get it down. So you've got to force yourself to take that step. If it's not working, if you're finding you can't write that novel, well, you can don't. You know, if it's not your thing, do not force yourself to do it. If it's not making you happy, if you're not getting pleasure out of that process, because it is a tough process. But if you like it, there's no feeling like it. If you like it, you're creating your own world, and other people then can share that world with you. I mean, wow. It must be the same with art, with music, anything creative. That's a fantastic thing to be able to do.
Absolutely. And I think your joy and love for writing certainly comes through in the way you talk about it. We have loved talking with you this afternoon. Thank you so very much for giving us your time. It was wonderful to hear you reading. And as Sam said, we feel like we have been really treated to quite a lot of fantastic snippets of advice. So thank you for being so generous with those as well.
And we will really look forward to the your book that's coming out in October as well.
Absolutely. And good luck with the second one as well in the series.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And can we just quickly ask, if anybody is wanting to find out any more about you or your books, are you on social media? And if so, or have a website, how would people find you?
I have a website now, yes, because that was part of the step of becoming, proper freelance author, proper author. So it's Marisa Linton, all one word, .com.
Fantastic. So if anybody else wants to find any more about you or your upcoming books, then that's the place to go to.
Yes, or Instagram, mlinton8.
Fab.
So it's been wonderful to talk to you. Thanks again for spending some time with us.
Thank you for listening.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and tell your writer friends about us.